Hello everyone, and welcome to the channel. Tonight, I'll take you on a dark journey, deep into the shadows of the human mind, where love turns into obsession and guilt takes the form of a cat with golden eyes. I am about to tell you one of the most chilling and unforgettable tales by Edgar Allan Poe, The Black Cat, a story of madness, remorse, and justice. So sit back, turn off the lights, and let the voice of horror whisper in your ear. It is difficult for me to recount this story, not because I lack clarity, but because of the unbearable weight it places on my soul. And yet, if I intend to confess something, and indeed, I intend to confess everything, I must begin by telling you who I was. In my youth, I was a man of tender heart. I loved every creature, any animal with a beating heart. I was always surrounded by pets, rabbits, birds, canaries, even small rodents. But the one I held dearest was a black cat, tall and slender, with golden eyes and an air of regal intelligence. We called him Pluto, in homage to the Roman god of the underworld, a name which, in a grim twist, would later foreshadow our fate. I remember him as sweet and affectionate. He loved to follow me, rub against my legs, rest on my lap while I read. He was almost a part of me. He traveled with me, slept at my feet, and I loved him with genuine devotion. With me lived my wife, a generous soul, even more sensitive than I. She cared for Pluto with equal affection. Our home echoed with purring meows and the pleasant morning sounds of feline life. But, as often happens, a shadow began to move inside me, a monster named alcohol. I began to drink, to drown inner storms, to forget resentments I couldn't even name. At first, I maintained control, but soon discipline gave way. My days grew darker, my emotions strained, my bonds frayed. I started mistreating the animals, then my wife, and finally, myself. The decline was swift. Pluto's mere presence began to annoy me. His once comforting meow now grated on my nerves. He moved around the house with an inquisitive gaze, as if reproaching me for my degeneration. One night, drunk, I lashed out at him. I chased him among the furniture, yelled at him like a sworn enemy. He fled, hiding beneath a cabinet. But even seeing his terror didn't stop me. I struck him, not mortally, but enough to humiliate him. His fur stood on end. His eyes glowed with fear. When sobriety returned, I felt remorse. He whimpered silently. I picked him up, apologized, but the flame within me had already been lit. Days passed in tension. One night, returning home intoxicated, I noticed Pluto avoiding me. He looked at me sideways, filled with fear. In a fit of madness, I lashed out again. This time, I stabbed his eye with a knife, the blade buried in his face, blood staining his sleek black fur. He rolled to the ground. I turned away. He was dying. I tried to justify it, but inside, I felt only cold emptiness. The next day, I wanted to put an end to it. Not out of mercy, simply because I couldn't bear his stare. But I didn't. I locked him in the cellar, in the dark, inside a basket. He emerged days later, emaciated, broken. My affection wasn't dead, but it was buried under layers of ice. Then, one morning, Pluto vanished. I searched the house, called his name, knocked on doors, checked corners. Nothing. A deep anguish settled over me. His absence felt unbearable. Strangely, I missed him, but that regret was met by a strange echo, a shiver of madness. In a sudden impulse, I took a rope, went into the garden, tied it to a tree branch, and hanged my poor companion. I watched him dangle, his head tilted forward, his eyes wide in a final, soundless scream. Then he dropped. I buried him. I felt relieved, but deep inside, something remained uneasy. That very night, fire broke out. It consumed our home, licking beams, devouring every trace of our life. My wife and I barely escaped. We stood in the street, watching the flames devour everything we had. And yet, a strange detail emerged from the ashes. A piece of wall remained intact, and on it, charred into the plaster, was the shape of a hanged cat. I recognized it instantly. It was Pluto. I had buried him elsewhere, hadn't I? And yet, here he was, engraved like a sign, a cruel monument to my crime. My neighbors spoke of accidents, of tricks of the light, but I knew better. I carried the knowledge in silence. Haunted, the guilt festered like a wound. Months passed. One evening, I wandered into a tavern, and there I saw it. Another black cat, identical to Pluto. Same sleek coat, same graceful posture, same piercing eyes, but with one difference, a white mark on its chest. I froze. The patrons around me laughed and played with it, calling it over. The cat approached me, rubbed against me. I hesitantly stroked its fur. It stayed, as if it knew me. I brought it home. My wife, unaware of the past, adored it. "How beautiful," she said. I called it Pluto, mockingly, daring fate. But as I looked closer, the white spot began to change. Day by day, it shifted from a simple patch of fur to something more grotesque. It started to resemble a gallows, a noose, the shape of a man hanging. The more I stared, the clearer it became. A sign of doom etched onto this creature sent to torment me. The cat grew more affectionate by the day. It followed me relentlessly, room to room, waking to sleeping. I began to hate it. I avoided it. I kicked at it, but it always returned. It clung to me, purring ominously. Its presence became unbearable. One day, in the cellar, it nearly tripped me as I descended the stairs. My rage exploded. I grabbed an axe and raised it to strike, to end this horror once and for all. But my wife intervened. She stopped my arm. In a blind frenzy, I turned the blade on her and buried it in her skull. She dropped lifelessly at my feet. No scream, just silence. Cold, deafening silence. I stood over her, breathless, trembling, then calm, horribly calm. I had done it. Now I had to hide the body. I worked through the night, methodically, like a man possessed. In a corner of the cellar, I broke open the wall, pushed her body into the space, and sealed it again with bricks and mortar. When the wall was smooth, no trace remained. It looked untouched. I cleaned the tools, washed the floor, and waited. The cat, it had vanished. I was relieved. Perhaps it had fled in fear. Perhaps my sins were buried with her. Days passed. No one suspected. When the police came, I welcomed them inside. Confident, I showed them every room, even the cellar. I smiled as they inspected the walls. And in my pride, in the ecstasy of my own deception, I tapped the very wall behind which she lay hidden, saying, "This wall, sirs, is perfectly constructed." Then came the sound. Muffled, hollow, a cry, a meow, faint, but clear. It came from the wall. The policeman froze. Again, a meow, a clawing sound. They tore down the wall. There, in the cavity, stood my wife's corpse, cold, stiff, eyes staring, and on her head perched the black cat, alive, screeching. I had sealed it in the tomb with her. It was my judge, my curse, my executioner, and that's all for our spooky story today. Let us know in the comments if you liked it and what other scary stories you want to hear. We love reading your comments, and we always respond to them. Also, don't forget to hit the like button if you enjoyed the story. Subscribe for more amazing stories. Thank you for watching. We'll see you next time.